Chapter 5: The Silence After Liberation. When Allied forces began to liberate Nazi concentration camps in the spring of 1945, the world was confronted with horrors it had never imagined, and perhaps never wanted to imagine. Emaciated prisoners, mass graves, and the remnants of genocide were laid bare for soldiers and journalists alike. The shock was immediate, the trauma visceral. But what followed in the days, months, and years after was not the cathartic reckoning one might expect. It was, instead, a chilling and complex silence. A world unprepared for truth. As the gates of Auschwitz, Buchenwald, Bergen-Belsen, and Dachau swung open, they revealed not only the barbarity of the Nazi regime but also the failure of the international community to intervene sooner. Many of the liberators, hardened by years of combat, broke down upon entering the camps. General Dwight D. Eisenhower insisted journalists and politicians be brought to the camps so that history could never deny what was found. He feared, rightly, that someday people would try. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the global response was muted. Survivors were liberated, but few were truly free. They had nowhere to go. Their families had been murdered, their homes stolen or destroyed. Many survivors languished in displaced persons DP camps, often under guard, still wearing striped uniforms, still enduring hunger and illness, and now facing a future filled with uncertainty. Survivors in a silent world. The post-war world was reluctant to hear their stories. The trauma of the Holocaust was too immense, too alien for most to process. In many parts of Europe, survivors were met not with sympathy, but with suspicion. In Poland, returning Jews were attacked. In France and Hungary, restitution for stolen property and homes was minimal or non-existent. Survivors who immigrated to the United States, Canada, and elsewhere were often encouraged to move on, to forget the past. In Israel, early attitudes toward Holocaust survivors were even tinged with shame. Some questioned how Jews could have allowed themselves to be led to the slaughter. These attitudes created an unspoken pressure to remain silent. Nuremberg and the limits of justice. The Nuremberg trials provided a brief moment of acknowledgement. For the first time in history, a legal process attempted to bring war criminals to justice for crimes against humanity. Yet the trials were limited in scope and reach. Of the thousands of perpetrators involved in the Holocaust machinery, only a fraction were prosecuted. Many more fled to South America or were quietly absorbed into post-war institutions, particularly in West Germany and even within the ranks of U.S. intelligence during the Cold War. Justice, in its fullest form, was elusive. Germany's struggle with its past. In Germany, the silence was enforced by necessity. With the country in ruins, few had the appetite to reckon with moral guilt. Many former Nazis returned to positions of power. The new West German state, under Konrad Adenauer, focused on rebuilding and reconciliation with the West, not deep reflection on the recent past. It wasn't until the 1960s that a new generation of Germans, those born after the war, began to ask difficult questions. The Frankfurt Auschwitz trials of 1963 to 65 marked a turning point, but the process of Vergangenheitsbewältigung, coming to terms with the past, would take decades. It was a painful evolution from silence to confrontation. Memory as resistance. While the world tried to move on, survivors became the stewards of memory. Writers like Elie Wiesel, Primo Levi, and Anne Frank, through her posthumous diary, began to give voice to the 6 million murdered Jews and countless other victims. Their testimonies slowly chipped away at the world's indifference. Institutions like Yad Vashem, established in 1953, and the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, established in 1993, helped institutionalize memory, but for decades, such efforts faced resistance. Memory had to fight to be heard. The danger of forgetting. Today, Holocaust remembrance is enshrined in law and education in many countries. But the post-liberation silence serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly societies can retreat from uncomfortable truths. The Holocaust did not end with the fall of the Third Reich. It lingered in silence, in denial, in the quiet suffering of survivors and the muted complicity of bystanders. The silence after liberation was not merely an absence of speech. It was a form of continuation. It was the final wound inflicted on a people already decimated. And yet, from that silence, a chorus of memory and testimony eventually rose, resilient, defiant, and vital.